Welcome back, SethBling here. And today I want to share with you a new route that I came up with for Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World All 5 Games with Ace. First I want to note, I started a new game in SMB3, and then immediately save and quit. So, this is the run that I'm going to be doing at Summer Games Done Quick 2022. But this route is not the route that I'm going to be doing. This is a route I came up with that's a lot more accessible. The normal route that I will be doing requires two multi-taps. Multi-taps are devices that allow you to plug in extra Super Nintendo controllers. And it also requires 4 controllers. At Summer Games Done Quick, I intend to have 3 other people holding the extra controllers. So I'll have one and 3 other people will have controllers, since that's 4 controllers. But not a lot of people have 2 multi-taps. There's really no reason anyone should own 2 multi-taps. In fact, the official Nintendo specification says that your game shouldn't support 2 multi-taps. You should only be able to plug in a multi-tap into the second game port. So, yeah, not a lot of people have 2 multi-taps unless they've been doing Super Mario World speedrunning or whatever. So I came up with a single controller route. So anyone who has a Super Nintendo, 1 controller, and Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World, or any flash cart that can run the game, and a legal copy of the game, can run this route. And so, yeah, I just wanted to like commentate this, show you what's going on with it. First of all, I'm doing power-up incrementation here. This is a version of power-up incrementation called First Pass Power-up incrementation because I'm doing it on my first pass through the level. You saw I did a Yoshi block duplication, and this is not required. This is like a little bit more difficult than doing power-up incrementation the normal way. But it's not too bad either. But it is a little bit faster. It saves like 8 seconds or something like that. Yeah, you grab a shell in one of the Yoshi's mouth, but I'm actually riding 2 Yoshis, so here's the second Yoshi. Now there's a null spread in Yoshi's mouth, and so when I spit that out, it does some things, and we increment Mario's power-up state. So normally Mario's power-up state is 0, 1, 2, or 3, with 0 being small, 2 being big, 3 being cape, and 3 being flower. Power-up incrementation increments it by 1, so instead of, well, we incremented it from 3 to power-up state 4. Power-up state 4 is catch-up Mario, of course. We actually get to power-up state 5. Now this is very similar to the multi-tap route. This is the same stuff I would be doing in the multi-tap route. So the beginning of the run is kind of similar. Get to power up state 5, and then use arbitrary code execution to get to power up state 15. So here we go, one more power up incrementation. This is there's a 7-frame window for that spit. If you spit outside the 7-frame window, then you crash the game, but 7 frames is actually pretty generous. Okay, so I actually forgot what I was doing there for a moment. This was the first run of the day, so I got a little confused, but yeah. So next, we need to set up a little bit of RAM. So we're basically getting a couple of things to appear at specific on-screen coordinates. So there's this white splat when you kick up this red shell, and then we need the red shell to despawn at a specific X coordinate. And so there's a little setup for that. That's very easy. If you want to do this for yourself, note that most of the things where you need to like line up pixels, you have a lot of time to do it. So here you can see I'm taking my time to line up the pixel to do the first red shell spit. So these red shell spits are setting up the data in the sprite X coordinate table. So there's a table that stores the X coordinates of all the sprites. We want byte after byte of that to actually represent basically processor instructions. And then we will trick the game into running the sprite X coordinate table as processor instructions by collecting a 1-up or a mushroom in an invalid power-up state. So I'm currently in an invalid power-up state, and when I collect this 1-up, it'll actually use the controller buttons, and so that's why I'm holding down a certain set of controller buttons to determine where to jump to. And so we determined to jump to the sprite X coordinate table, and that code changed the power-up state from 5 to 15. So that's why Mario's palette just changed a little bit. The bottom half of him was red before, now it's green, and there's a slightly different palette for its head and everything. You'll notice I glitched 2 berries there. That's important for a sprite slot management. The reason to get to power up state 15 is because it allows for easier arbitrary code execution. So in power up state 5, you need a 1-up to trigger the ace. Ace stands for arbitrary code execution. Which there's not really an easy way to get lots of 1-ups in this level, but in power up state 15, you can use a mushroom to trigger the ace. And when you trigger the ace, you also get a mushroom back in your item reserve box. So I can use that mushroom in my item reserve box to trigger ace, and then I'll get a mushroom back, which is very convenient. It allows me to trigger ace multiple times without having to like reload the level, redo these spits and everything. So here I'm setting up some code in the sprite X coordinate table to write the value hexadecimal E4 to hexadecimal address 06F0. And this is basically just like another memory manipulation trick, which will make it even easier to run arbitrary code. So there we go. By collecting the mushroom there, I wrote that value to that address, and then I got a mushroom back. And so now address 06F0 contains value E4, which means that it's a little bit easier to run arbitrary code. We can actually run more bytes of arbitrary code. It's a little bit technical why, I'm not going to explain why, but it makes the rest of this run possible. So this is the second to last set of red shell spits that I need to do in this run. This is going to set up the code for the bootstrap write. So the bootstrap or bootloader is a little bit of code that will make it easy to write a lot of code. So the game, when the game boots up, it puts some data into RAM and then calls that data as code every frame. This code is normally used for graphics. It's used to hide unused graphics tiles when they're no longer being used. And so we're going to actually modify this code so that, and the useful thing is that this code gets called by the game every frame. So by modifying this code, we can have our own code that gets called by the game every frame. So it's like running arbitrary code execution every single frame, rather than just when we collect a mushroom or 1-up or whatever. So by positioning Yoshi and then positioning Mario, I can basically Yoshi's X coordinate gets set as the value, and Mario's X coordinate gets set as the address to write to, and so we're writing byte after byte of data into that bit of code that gets run from RAM every frame. And so we're modifying that code from RAM, 10 bytes of that code, with some alterations that will allow me to write a bunch of data to the Super Mario Bros. 3 save file. And so, by the way, I've just memorized all of these pixels. So if I can do it, you can too. It did take a bit of effort to memorize everything, but yeah, everything is in the route document that's contained in the video description. That was weird. The video just got washed out for a moment there. Didn't know that happened. Anyway, so here you'll see the graphics start to glitch out, and that's because, like I said, we're modifying a bit of code that is used to hide unused graphics tiles. And so you can see some of those unused graphics tiles appearing on screen. And this code, so what this code does is whenever you press B to jump, it takes Mario's X coordinate and writes it to the SMB3 save file A. So at the beginning of the run, I started a new game on SMB3 save file A, and that's to set that save file to a known state. Here I'm jumping 27 times, because I need to write the value 0 27 times in a row. But yeah, so the code modifications let me move Mario to an X coordinate and jump to write a byte, and then it moves on to the next address. And so we're writing byte after byte into the SMB3 save file for a total of 74-ish, I think it's 74 bytes. Though a lot of those are zeros, and that's why you saw me jumping 27 times just now. Or not jumping 27 times, pressing B 27 times. So we're corrupting the Super Mario Bros. 3 save file for a very specific reason, which is that there's an arbitrary code execution glitch found by Mally, who basically found that if you use a certain glitched item, by the way, I'm just start selecting because the timer was almost running out. But since we modified that code from RAM, you can see the graphics are still glitched out. So the bootstrap is still active. And we can still just move to an X coordinate and jump to write that incremental data to the SMB3 save file. So basically by using a glitched item in SMB3, we can make the game, trick the game into running code from Mario's item bar in SMB3. And so by corrupting the SMB3 save file, we can actually store an entire payload, arbitrary code payload, and very quickly just load up the game, use the item to call that payload. And so it allows us to have a persistent payload that'll survive resets because it's stored in the save data. And so there I just finished writing all of the data to the SMB3 save file. And so that we're good to go. The final thing I need to do, of course, and this is what I do in the multi-tap version as well, is to do a credits warp. So I have to do another set of red shell spits. And it's just 5 spits. And it'll set the game mode to credits mode, essentially. And so, yeah, I just spit 5 shells and that's it. It's like almost mundane at this point, doing a credits warp. But it has to be done because this is all 5 games where we beat all 5 games. That's the category. So anyway, this is the second to last spit, and then there's one more spit, and then I just need to collect a mushroom. There's no, like, I don't have to be at any particular X coordinate or anything like that to collect the mushroom because of the RAM manipulation I did earlier. So there we go. There's the credits. Now I reset and load Super Mario Bros. 3 save file A. And you'll see it happens very fast. As soon as I load the save file, I open the item bar and use the first item, and it'll call that payload. So the first thing that we do with the payload is to basically tell it to load Super Mario Bros. 1 at level 8-4 with debug mode enabled. So we've got debug mode enabled. Debug mode is actually built into the game. It enables no clip. It enables giving yourself power-ups. Now I'm actually using a new time save here, where if you get yourself to a very specific Y coordinate, you can skip all the loop objects in 8-4. And by skipping the loop objects, you can actually just run straight through the level. You don't have to go through any of the pipes that you normally would have to run through. So it's actually about 18 seconds faster than completing the level normally, which is a really cool time save found by Wolf Attorney and 3Creepio. And that'll actually apply to the version of the run that I'm doing in SGDQ as well. So here you saw me once again loading SMB3 and then basically running that payload to tell it to load the lost levels. And so basically which D-pad buttons I have held down control which game gets loaded and which world gets loaded. So here we're in world D4, which is one of the final levels of the lost levels. The lost levels actually has kind of 2 final levels. There's 8-4 and there's D4. So there is probably a way to actually load 8-4 and skip the loop objects like I did in SMB1, but I haven't mapped that out. But it might be a way to actually save more time even in the lost levels by loading 8-4 instead of D4. But without skipping the loop objects, D4 is a bit faster to complete, so that's why we load D4. Then once again, loading SMB3 save file A using that glitched item from the item bar here, and loading Super Mario Bros. 2. We actually load an invalid level 7-6. You'll see it on screen in a moment right now. 7-6. So this is an invalid sort of out of bounds level that happens to pull data from level 7-2. So by going through a couple doors and then dying, it tricks the game into actually loading 7-2, but halfway through. So we get to skip the first half of 7-2, which is pretty sweet. We just basically go straight to Hawkmouth, who is the second to last boss of the game. Have to kill him normally, even though debug mode does give us like the ability to give ourselves star power. If you killed Hawkmouth with star power, you wouldn't be able to go through his mouth and enter the final fight here. Now Wart is vulnerable to vegetables. Sorry, it was vulnerable to star power, but only once he's been hit by a veggie. So we have to get a veggie to spawn and hit him before we can beat the game. But then we complete SMB2. And then there's one final game to complete, which is SMB3. And so the final thing that the payload does is it can call a function which sets 2 bytes. One byte says, if you're playing a level, immediately clear the level and beat it. And the second byte says, whenever you beat a level, instead of loading the overworld, load the credits. And so here we are in the credits. That is the final game. We've done sort of a credits warp for SMB3. Whew. So my time was a little under 15 minutes. I think there's probably a easy, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute to save without any more like optimizations to the route. There's probably some more optimizations to the route that can be done. But this is about 5 minutes slower, 5 or 6 minutes slower than the version that I do with multi-taps. So you might ask yourself, why am I doing this? Well, I already explained earlier. It's for accessibility. Basically, I suspect there might be people out there who want to try doing this arbitrary code execution run, but don't have 2 multi-taps and 4 controllers and a bunch of clamps like I do. And so this is a version that anybody with a single controller, a Super Nintendo, and Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World, or an appropriate flash cartridge can do. And it's not easy. There's a lot of either memorization or referencing a document required. Now, you can actually like pause the game to make sure you're at the right pixel, or to check what the next pixel you need to be at is, or whatever. So you can actually do this without memorizing really anything, or not much anyway, by just pausing frequently, and you'll go very slow, but you'll be able to do it. So this is currently not really like its own category or anything. I'm not submitting this to speedrun.com. It's just another way to do this route. But if a bunch of people get involved and they want to do the single controller route, maybe it would become its own category. It all depends like what the community wants. Maybe nobody will pick it up. Maybe I did this for no reason other than my own gratification. I don't know. I thought I'd put it out there in case there are people interested. Just see what it's like, see how hard it would be, and if there is anyone interested, well, you can try it now. So, feel free to reach out to me on Discord if you need help getting started with this. I have some like practice resources and stuff that you might find helpful. Yeah, that's it. Once again, the route document is in the video description, and check it out. Oh, there's also a technical description of what's going on in the route document. So if you want to know technically what's going on, even if you don't want to do the run for yourself, that explains the whole route from end to end, all the technical aspects of it. That's about it. Thanks for watching.